Welcome to the Calvary Chapel Salmon podcast. It's good to see everyone. Hagen, how you doing today?
Jordan, I'm doing
Hagen,
good.
let's cut the chit chat, okay?
Okay.
Okay, let's get right to it. Actually, Avery, how are you?
Good.
That's good. Sorry, I wasn't mean to yell. My bad.
Winter has come, Jordan.
Sure. It's like 8 degrees outside right now.
That's right. It's snowing. It's supposed to get more snow. Dally Construction called me and said, do you want us to move those piles of snow? Because we're expecting more on Friday.
Is that what they were doing?
I said, yeah, come move them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the big old things out there. I was like, I wonder what they're up to.
Yeah.
But Hagen,
we're not going to talk about the weather all podcast,
No.
are we?
Hopefully not.
hopefully, we're talking about the end of the world, Hagen.
Although people love talking about the weather.
Sure. Yeah.
Literally, I called this woman from TurboTax because I was having issues with my taxes, but I got all straightened out. But I called her and she's in like Ohio. She's like, so what part of the country are you in? I'm like, Idaho. And she's like, what's the weather like there? And I'm like, cold and snowy.
Yeah.
She's like, us too. And the weirdest thing is it was just like the timing of it and the conversation was so weird because there was like a time when she's like waiting for something to process. Like that would have been a good time to fill like dead air. But it wasn't then. It was like she let me know it worked and then she brings up the weather and then it's like goodbye. But yeah, it's just what we love talking about.
We can all relate to it.
We all are affected by what goes on outside thermatically.
Yeah. Wow. That's true. But we're also all affected by what's going to happen in the world one day when Jesus Christ returns.
That's right.
And that's why today we are talking about the entire book of Revelation.
Sheesh.
Hopefully. We'll say that when we get into like the chapter 2 or something.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, Jordan, it's been said this way that the book of Revelation is not a hard book to understand.
No, it's not.
Because it's the only book in the Bible with its own divine outline.
Yes, it is. Revelation chapter 119.
That's right. Revelation 1:19 says, write the things which you have seen, and the things which are, and the things which will take place after this. The things which you have seen, Revelation chapter 1, the things that are, Revelation 2 and 3, the things that will take place after this, Revelation chapter 4, to the end of the book, chapter 22.
And that's significant that we see a large chunk of Revelation as being future or having not yet happened because a lot of Christians don't see it like that. A lot of Christians see Revelation as already having taken place in 70 AD. They use these pictures of how when Rome came and destroyed the temple, that's the book of Revelation, and now we're past that. There's 4 main views of the end times. There's the amillennialists, postmillennialists, postmillennialists. I'm kidding. Then there's the premillennialists, and those are into 2 groups, pre-tribulation and post-tribulation. We're the best one. We believe in the pre-tribulation.
That's what all of them would say, though.
That is true. They would all say that. Yeah, but
Guess what?
We're
They're
right.
not on this podcast.
Oh, they're not on this podcast.
We're actually
Get your own podcast, postmillennialists. Yeah.
Yikes.
Postmillennialists and amillennialists are very similar in the fact that, like I just mentioned, they believe that Revelation already kind of fulfilled, and now we are in the millennial reign of Christ. Right now, 2025, February 11th, or whenever you listen to this, we're in the reign of Christ. Amillennialists see as a very spiritual kingdom, like Jesus is ruling and reigning from heaven, and like the church is kind of doing things, we're saving people. That's the reign of Christ. Postmillennialists see as more of like the church is going to take over the world type deal. Like the church is going to change the world, and we're going to get better and better, and we're going to infiltrate governments, and one day we're going to turn the whole world into this one big Christian nation. That's kind of what the postmillennials believe. And there's people believe different things, but that's the gist of it. But that's kind of silly because we believe that Revelation is future, and there's a whole bunch of reasons why we believe that. And so we would fall into the premillennialists, and we believe that the millennial reign of Christ is yet to come. It's literal. Jesus is going to rule and reign literally from this earth for 1,000 years. And that's what Revelation talks about.
And the book of Revelation comes from the name Revelation, and that name Revelation means the what?
The revealing.
The revealing or the unveiling of, it tells you right there in verse 1, right? The revelation of Jesus Christ.
Not revelations, not multiple, only
That's
one.
right. The single revealing of Jesus in his glory throughout the tribulation, in his second coming, in his kingdom age, in his happily ever after with new heaven and new earth. This is the revealing, the unveiling, the further seeing of Jesus. So that's why, and like kind of talked about this towards the last part of last week's episode. That's why personally I believe the book of Revelation is the only book in the Bible that not only has its own divine outline, but also the only book in the Bible that promises a blessing to everyone who reads, hears, and keeps the words of this prophecy, because it is a book that's just all about Jesus being unveiled, revealed to us.
Right on. Yeah. And like you said, that's chapter 1. Chapter 1 is John getting this vision while he's on this island of Patmos, and he sees Jesus revealed in glory. And so that's the things that you have seen, chapter 1, verse 19, write the vision of who I am. The things that are, like you mentioned, is chapter 2 and 3, and that's these 7 letters to these 7 churches throughout Asia Minor, modern day Turkey. Asia Minor,
funny?
yes, a little bit, because what you said the other time, but modern day Turkey, and these 7 churches had problems. Were different churches, but in general, putting all 7 of them together represent what we could say is the church age, or the time that we're living in right now. These 7 churches. You got. Should we go through them really quick?
Yeah.
Okay, first one is the Church of Ephesus.
And it is the loveless church.
Aww.
The same church
Sad.
that the book of Ephesians is written to by Paul.
Yep.
Later on, through John, Jesus is writing a letter.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of neat to see that connection. Like, this is just the same group of people that Paul ministered to years later, that they're getting a follow-up report from Jesus.
And they're
That'd
not
be
doing too
something.
good. Well, they're doing okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're doing a lot of things. However, at the end of the letter, Jesus points out, you're doing all these things, you're working really hard for me, but you've left your first love.
He misses you.
Yes.
He's like, guys, come back.
And so what does he tell them to do? Pumpkin, do you know?
Return.
Yep.
Get back.
Yep. Exactly.
Remember
Repent.
and repeat.
Yep. RRR.
Yes, the 3 R's. Remember your first love.
Mm-hmm.
You know, today is actually, when this drops, is Valentine's Day.
That's true.
Wow.
Yep.
And Jesus here is just writing his heart to this church. You've forgotten your first love.
Mm-hmm.
It's me, he says.
That's
Remember
true.
me.
Next church is the
They're
church.
so busy about the king's business, they forget to spend time with the king.
Oh.
So just that invitation to come on back, he says.
Yep. Next church is the church of Sardis. This is the persecuted church. Jesus has nothing.
Are you sure it's not Smyrna?
Oh shoot, that's embarrassing.
No worries.
That's okay.
Smyrna and Sardis. Yes, Smyrna.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're good. I thought he's so boldly just rambling this off.
Going on.
Yes.
But
Smyrna.
Yeah.
Well, now I don't even feel
The
it.
Persecuted church.
Yes, yes. Jesus has nothing negative to say about them. He promised them, yeah, you guys are going to make it
each
through.
church gets a specific blessing,
Sure.
which is interesting associated with it.
What's the blessing to the church in Smyrna?
He who has an ear to hear what the Spirit says
Oh,
to
no
church.
way. No, he says that to all of them.
He who overcomes shall not be hurt by the second death.
No, that's it, yeah.
Be faithful to the end. Verse 10, I'll give you the crown of life.
Yeah. He says, hey, you guys are going to get persecuted, but you guys got some more persecution on the way. So buckle up for that, but I'll get you through it. And then next church I have it in front of me. It's the Church of Pergamos.
Yes.
That's a good one. Pergamos has this problem of some sneaky people sneaking in to the church and compromising the church. I think it's the compromised church. And similarly to that, do you have anything to say about Pergamos? They get promised some cool stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
A white stone, and that stone will have a new name on it.
After I taught this on a Sunday morning, and I have it, it's probably in this desk somewhere. Josh brought me a little, like a white rock that he found
Aww.
and gave it to me.
And did it have like a name on it?
No name.
Like Henry. this will be your new name in heaven. So yep, Pergamos. And then also with that, Thyatira. Thyatira is similar. Some people see Thyatira as kind of having more problems than Pergamos. They have this woman Jezebel in there who is doing things. Probably not
The
this.
spirit of Jezebel is alive and well today amongst churches.
Yes, yes, it is. Probably not a literal woman named Jezebel, but this probably
Spirit
false.
of her.
Maybe, or it's just this lady, false teacher lady, who's teaching a bunch of crap and getting people to do things they shouldn't. Teaching licentiousness.
Wow.
That's the big word. And Jesus is like, hey, cut it out. And I'm going to throw them into a sick bed. So Jesus is pretty serious there. Jesus is very serious about his church and taking care of his church. And when people mess with it, he does not like that. He promises the church of Thyatira that he who overcomes and keeps my works until the end, to him I will give power over the nations. He shall rule them with a rod of iron, and they shall be dashed to pieces like the potter's vessel. Hey, you guys who are true believers in this church, you're going to get to rule the world with me. So I like that.
And he keeps, or at least at the end, he reminds them, like, I'm the one who searches hearts and minds. Like, you guys may be thinking you're doing right things, but I still know exactly what
What's up?
is really going on, even though,
Now the Church of Sardis.
The one who searches the heart and mind. Today in Bible class, I taught the kids in Luke chapter 11 the cursing of the fig tree. And the idea is leafy but not fruitful. And it's like looking like
right.
you'd be fruitful,
Right.
but lacking the substance, lacking the fruit. And it's just that idea, like you're not fooling Jesus. Like he's the one who searches the heart and the minds. So it doesn't matter if you look the part. If you're lacking the fruit of the Spirit, then you're not well pleasing to Him.
And then now we have the Church of Sardis, and this is the church that is also doing a lot of good things. Well, not really.
I guess
They have a name that
going through the motion maybe, or no?
they're going through the motions. They have the name as if they're alive, but really they're dead. So they got and this can be a lot of churches today, churches with names on the door, like say Baptists or Methodists or maybe even Calvary Chapel, churches who have fame of doing a lot of really good things, but in reality there's not too much going on in the present day. They're maybe always looking towards the past or the good old days, like when we used to do stuff for Jesus, or remember this revival, but nowadays they're not doing too much, or they're dead. There's nothing really going on. So Jesus is like, cut that out. And then he promises those who overcome that they'll get clothed in white garments. That's cool. And then this next church is really good. What's this next church, Hagen? It's maybe
Philadelphia.
yes, it is. Yes, the winners of the 2025 59th Super Bowl.
Oh my gosh. And then when you were teaching it in middle school youth group, you said, really handsome guys come out of this church.
The Church of
Biblically,
Philadelphia.
As he
It's
taught
true.
that,
Yeah.
Facts.
Maybe we'll meet him one day.
Okay. Church of Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. Not Philadelphia in Pennsylvania on the East Coast, the old one. And the kids asked me recently, is there still a city of Philadelphia? Like, and I know their city still exists, but I don't know if it's still called Philadelphia or not. I would imagine it's still called that, but I don't know. But this church also, Jesus has nothing negative to say about them. They're doing everything right. They kind of have three things that they're really doing that's really awesome. They're the church of the open door. They're evangelizing. They have opportunities to share the gospel. They have open doors to share the gospel, and they're walking through them. They're sharing God's word. Two, they haven't denied God's word. They're preaching the Bible. They're teaching God's word. And then thirdly, they are ready for the rapture. And Jesus talks about how he Behold, I am coming quickly, and to those who persevere, I will keep you from the hour of trial, which is coming upon the whole world. Speaking of the rapture, how, hey, you guys are going to be kept that way. You guys are going to be taken out before this hour of trial comes upon the whole world, being the tribulation. So that's the awesome church. That's the church we want to be. You want to be the Church of Philadelphia.
Says, I set before you an open door, and no one can shut it. There in verse 8 of chapter 3.
Yeah.
Here's your open door, and no one can shut it.
Yeah.
Your job, walk through it, take advantage of it, go in the direction I'm leading you in. Like I've opened, I paved the way. You just need to step foot. And that reminds me of Joshua. Of anywhere the sole of your foot touches, you have victory and dominion over. It's like, here it is. Your job is just to step on it. Your job is just to walk out in faith and claim it.
Yeah.
And it's just a similar idea. Here it is. Walk out and claim it.
I like this idea that Jesus will give us opportunities to, in the words of evangelize, but at least to talk about him and to be a witness for him. And we just need to look for those opportunities because they're there. And they're not going to be the same for everyone. Like the way that I talk about Jesus, the opportunities I get aren't going to be the same as yours, Hagen, aren't going to be the same as yours, Avery. They're going to be different. And like my opportunities are maybe like I go skiing and I get to talk to people on the ski lift for 20 minutes because it's super stinking slow.
Do you ski, Jordan?
I do ski.
Did you go this weekend?
I did. It was lots of fun.
Did your boots do okay?
They did pretty good. Yeah, they
Like
fixed
they
them
didn't
up.
pop out?
They got a little wiggly, but they didn't pop out or pop off. Yeah.
Do you have to like
You popped off.
tighten them?
though.
Right. No, you don't. You're not supposed to tie the boots. Yeah, you can tie in the skis a little bit to make them looser. But actually, I got much better. And Steele was even like, Jordan, you've done so much better. Shout out Steele if you're listening.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was a
good.
lot of fun. But yeah, I got, because there's this really long ski lift, and it's just like, yeah, I was skiing with some other guys. They got much too better for me. Like they were going down black diamonds, and I was like, I'm not going to do that. So I just went off by myself, did my own little thing, and I was like, oh, I guess I'm single. So in skiing, you say single, and someone else just skis up next to you. And it's like, oh, let's ride together. So you just kind of make new
You're
friends.
kidding
Like
me.
that's how it works. Yeah.
You're out on the hill and you just go single, and
Yeah.
here comes a buddy.
Yeah, that's how it works.
That's crazy.
Because there's so many
Oh.
people.
Taught you that.
Steele did.
That'd be so funny.
But
if that
I also
wasn't
saw
a thing.
I saw people doing it. Yes. Yeah.
You're just like, okay.
And this other guy, and we just kind of ride this one. And the trail, the lifts at Lost Trail are super old, and just got to talk to all these different interesting people.
That
A
makes
Buddhist,
lot
a
more
Mormon,
sense.
a Christian, the full gambit.
All on the ski slopes.
All on the ski slopes. Yep. So, but that's not an opportunity everyone has because you don't know how to ski. So, but you have other opportunities. We all have open doors. So I like that
That's
idea.
right. Huh.
Yep. And then, do you have anything to say about the Church of Philadelphia?
No.
Do really handsome guys come out of that church?
Yes.
Good. Church of Laodicea.
Only one.
Oh, good. That was a test. Yes. Church of Laodicea. They are the lukewarm. Hagen, I like my coffee hot,
Oh my gosh.
and I like my coffee iced. But Hagen, I don't like my coffee lukewarm.
Really?
It's gross. And that's what Jesus says about
You
Christians.
like your food lukewarm, though.
Do I?
I
With
don't
a
know.
napkin
You'll
on top.
eat like half of it and then wait an hour and then eat the other half.
That's
What
It's
the
like,
heck?
what?
Do you live?
Yeah.
I was like, do you live with him? But you did at
Yeah, I
one point,
did
so you
live
do
with
know
him.
that. I was
You're
like, how
the
do you
only
know
person
that?
I know who's like that.
Well, I'm not Jesus, so that makes sense.
I like my food fresh.
Sure. That's nice.
And I eat it all.
Good.
And then I'm done eating. And then I do the dishes.
Well, I do have okay. I do have like this appetite of like I get hungry in bursts. Like I'll eat a lot and I'll wait like 20 minutes and I'll get hungry again. So
For like a sweet treat or something,
or just for more food in
more
general.
food. Yeah.
Yeah. The
I
idea
heard, did you have tri-tip at the Super Bowl party?
brisket. That's pretty
Was
good.
it good?
Yeah.
Yeah, someone who was there told me they ate so much they got the meat sweats.
Yeah. Yeah. Stark. Yeah.
Did you have that?
No, I didn't have it. I ate a good amount. He had 5 Dr. Peppers that boy did.
Say
I
that.
thought he had two.
No, he told me he
said
had 5.
Yeah.
I was like, bro, where'd you even get them? Because I only thought you drank 2 as well, but yeah,
Oh wow.
And you only had one?
I had 2.
He had two.
Oh,
Yes.
that's okay.
It was a long game,
Sure.
so I was there for 4 hours.
Yeah.
So I had 2 drinks, Dr. Pepper. First Dr. Peppers in a long time.
Wow.
Let the
Okay.
record show. Yeah. Laodicea.
Lukewarm.
Lukewarm.
Not pleasing.
Yep.
Right.
Not in the middle.
Jesus
Not
says, I
committed to one
wish
side or the other.
you were cold, Jesus says. And that's
right.
an interesting thing for him to say, because cold would obviously be bad or against Jesus. And that's interesting. The people who are like angry at God or against God are better than the people who just don't care or who are apathetic about God, because at least the people who are angry at God care about God. So there's something to that. Jesus says, I wish you were on one of these extremes and not just, eh.
He said, you give me the urge to regurge.
Yeah,
You make me want to vomit you out of my mouth.
sure.
Jesus says, I look at you.
Dang. It's been said that most churches in America are the Church of Laodicea, just full of people who are whatever, about Jesus. Like they'll say they're Christian, they'll go to church every once in a while, but there's not a fire, there's not a zeal, there's not intensity there.
And he says to this church, which is a famous verse that's often used in evangelism, Revelation 3:20. He says, I stand at the door and I knock. And he says, if anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and dine with him and him with me. And Jesus is declaring that to a church, not to the lost world. Although we can apply it there, but the context is to a church. He's on the outside of this church. And you tie it all in. He's supposed to be in the midst of the lampstands. 7 lampstands are the 7 churches. He's on the outside of this one, and he's there just like, hey, guys, you want to let me back in type of a thing.
Yeah. It's not good when Jesus isn't even inside your church.
But it's still
That's
like
right.
his long-suffering character is throughout the whole thing. Like he could be angry at them and be so done, but still he's like, I'm still here waiting. Please let me in.
He's still knocking. Yep.
Knock, knock, knocking on
Heaven's door. Well, that's the church age right there. And I believe that all 7 of those churches still exist today in a spiritual... They were literal churches, but in some spiritual form, they're still the churches of Philadelphia. They're still the churches of Laodicea. And we want to be watching out for
And
them.
I believe in some spiritual sense, we are all these churches.
All
Our
of them.
lives are in different seasons,
Sure.
you know.
Yeah. We can be. Oh, us as an individual or us as like Calvary Chapel Salmon?
Individual.
Yeah, more like us.
Oh,
in
yeah.
your like spiritual walk.
Oh,
Just
right.
like you're all the soils of the parable of the
Sure.
soil. Like you go
Right.
through seasons of sometimes I'm this one, sometimes I'm that
Yeah.
one.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And my friend Dave Coleman did the 7 marriages of the 7 churches and walked through, used these teachings and somehow correlated them with marriage. So you can apply these in some interesting ways, maybe when you look at them. Context to the churches, but individually.
There's lots of fun application
Yeah.
you could go crazy with. But then after that, we kind of now go into the future part of the book.
And the strangest thing about this is throughout chapters 1 and 2 and 3, you notice that there's a reoccurring word that's used, and it's churches, church. And you're reading the book of Revelation, you're thinking, we're going to be dealing a lot with the church here. And then you get to chapter 4, and from chapter 4 onwards, guess what word is omitted from what happens?
Church.
The word church is not used from chapter 4 onward, which is crazy. All the time up through. The book of Revelation is not a hard book to understand because it's the only book in the Bible with its own divine outline. Revelation 1:19, the things that are, we see the word church used a lot in that section. The things that were, the things that are a lot in that section. The things that will take place after this, that section, we no longer see the word church used. That's interesting.
Yep.
Why? Well, verse 1 of chapter 4 says, after these things, what's the outline? Things that were, things that are, things that will take place. What? After these things, Greek word. Metatauta. Same word.
Rapturo.
Metatauta, chapter 4 starts out with that word. After these things, that third and final section, back to our outline of Revelation chapter 1, verse 19. After these things, I looked and behold a door standing open in heaven. And the first voice which I heard was like a trumpet. The trump will sound, speaking with me, saying, come up here. Catching up. Come up here, and I will show you these things which must take place again, metatauta, after this.
Yep. I like how you mentioned in the Church of Philadelphia, the Church of Philadelphia is the church of the open door, and that no one can shut that door. It's also the church that Jesus says, hey, I'm going to take you from this hour of trial. And then chapter 4, we see this open door in heaven, and they go up, or someone calls them up, well, like you said, like a trumpet. So, yeah, I think the rapture is at least pictured here in chapter 4, verse 1, which is super
Immediately,
cool.
he was in the Spirit, and behold, a throne set in heaven, and one sat on the throne.
Is it the Father, Son, or Holy Spirit?
Here he is. Here he is dealing with the things that are, the present. And all of a sudden, whew, after these things, future, from time to eternity, whew, in the moment, in the twinkling of an eye, taken up John was with the voice of a trumpet. And the first thing he sees, immediately, he's caught up in the Spirit. And behold, the first thing John mentions of what he sees is a throne that's set there in heaven. Not his dog that died.
Aww.
Not his grandma. Not his mum.
Dang.
The first thing he sees in heaven is a throne and one sitting on that throne. Wow.
Yep.
That's cool.
That is cool. And there's also these 24 elders around the throne. Who are these guys, Hagen? They're clothed in white robes, and they have crowns of gold on their heads.
That's right. They're clothed in white. They have crowns of gold, and they declare to the one on the throne that he is worthy. They declare that they've been washed by his blood. So they are a group of people that have been washed by the blood of the Lamb. They are a group of people that, because of that, are clothed in white. They are a group of people that have crowns on their head.
Yes.
And all of those adjectives are used to describe throughout the Bible believers in Jesus or the church. So,
yeah. Even in the letters that we just talked about, like to the church of Smyrna, he promised a crown of life. And to the other church, he promised white robes. And to another church, he promised, hey, you guys are going to sit on thrones. And then we see these people with white robes, crowns, sitting on thrones. It would seem that these 24 represent the church in general, probably. Although maybe it's individuals. Maybe me and you, Hagen, maybe us three will be sitting up there on thrones. Maybe we'll be 3 of the 24 elders.
can women be elders?
Uh-oh. So it's probably just the church in general. We'll go
Yeah.
with that. Yeah, representing the church
We'll
in
be
heaven.
in the lobby, all the ladies.
No.
And not only that, but also around this throne with the one sitting on it are these 4 living creatures that are kind of interesting. Eyes all around. One of them is like a lion. One of them looks like a calf. One of them has the face like a man. And the last one is like a flying eagle. And we see these in Ezekiel around the throne as well. In Ezekiel's vision. So there's a consistency there between the Old and New Testament of those who get to see heaven, of these creatures that are around the throne of God day and night saying, holy, 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 Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come.
And Revelation 4 is probably the only, if not the definitely the best picture of like heaven that we get. And again, like you said, it's all about the throne. Like the focus is going to be on Jesus when we get to heaven. And you were going to say
The living creatures worshiping, the 24 elders worshiping John sees. These 24 elders are taking off their crowns. They're laying them at the feet of him who sits on the throne. They're declaring, verse 11, you are worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power. For you created all things, and by your will they exist and were created. So it's just a pulling back, a revealing and unveiling of the worship of God that takes place in heaven. Chapter 4 is that heavenly throne room. As well as chapter 5, but the scene starts to change in chapter 5. And honestly, chapter 5 is one of my favorites.
Really?
Because of the dilemma that's there.
And then the solution.
That's
Yeah.
discovered.
Stop.
It's just like so dramatic.
Yes.
If
It's
you
like,
just
what
read
are we
it.
going to do?
Yeah.
like,
it's
Yeah, John
so
starts
funny.
crying.
It's just so like intense.
Yeah.
If you can really just grab a hold of it and think about like this heartbrokenness, then turn to joy
Yeah.
when the solution is discovered.
Right.
Yeah, it's so good.
So, yeah.
Because John sees in the right hand of him who's sitting on the throne a scroll written inside and on the back, and it's sealed with 7 seals. Those 7 seals are important because when these 7 seals get open, the rest of the book's about the opening of this scroll in heaven. Then I saw a strong angel proclaim with a loud voice, "Who is worthy to open the scroll and to loose its seals?" This seal needs to be opened. These 7 seals need to be broken. We need to find someone worthy to do this. A strong angel declares that day. Verse 3 tells us, no one in heaven or on the earth or under the earth was able to open the scroll or to loose its seals. So
Not
John
one.
says, I wept much because no one was found worthy to open and read the scroll or to look at it. This is a bad day for John in heaven in his vision. This ain't going well. We're done. No one can open this scroll. John starts crying. How long? Don't know, but out of nowhere. Verse 5, one of those 24 elders, one of the elders said to me, John, don't weep, he says. Stop your crying. It'll be all right, he says. Do not weep. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has prevailed to open the scroll and to loose its seals. And I looked, and behold, in the midst of the throne of the 4 living creatures, in the midst of the elders, stood the Lamb as though he had been slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent out into the earth. And he came and he took that scroll out of the right hand of him who sat on the throne. This is very interesting.
Sure.
Especially when you're trying to comprehend the Trinity here. Because the one on the throne who's described as like Jasper and all these interesting descriptions of chapter 4 is the Father. He's on the throne. He has the scroll in his hand on the throne. Who can open the scroll, the angel says? John concludes, no one. He's bummed. Wait a minute, John. Behold, look. In the midst of the throne, not on the throne, but in the midst of the throne, one emerges as the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root and offspring of David. He appears as a lamb who's been slain. He takes the scroll out of the hand of the Father and opens it. That's what we see in chapter 5.
It's cool. And the scroll, like you said, it's going to be these 7 seals are going to be God pouring out his wrath on the world. These 7 seal judgments. We think that this the scroll is the title deed of the earth, right, Hagen? Is that what we think?
That is what we think. Yes.
And so it's like Jesus is like coming back to reclaim the earth. But before he can reclaim the earth, like there needs to be like this judgment poured out on the earth to make God needs to punish all the wickedness on the earth. Is that kind of the idea, or?
Yeah, sure. I would just so if the claiming of the scroll and the opening of the scroll, if you will, is him claiming back ultimate authority over what Adam forfeited to Satan, and that's going to ultimately come to pass when he establishes his kingdom, when he comes back in his second coming. So between chapter 5 of him grabbing the scroll and chapter 19 of him coming back in his second coming, and chapter 20 establishing his kingdom, we have 7 years of him getting the world ready for his return.
Sure.
And that is accomplishing a lot of things. One, he's waking up a people.
Yep.
The people of Israel. He's waking them up. He's shaking up the world like a last call, like life as you know it is changing forever. And now is your chance to either get right or get left type of a thing, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just this like through the judgment is his grace declaring we're running out of time.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. judgment and grace. And so, yeah, the Lamb takes the scroll and he starts to open them. And that's basically, like you said, a large chunk of the rest of the book. We have these 7 seals. You want to get into those?
Just before we go, I just think again, Jesus, as he like is there about to take it, he doesn't come in like a big old fancy form being like, don't worry guys, I'm here. But instead it's just like very humble and still as the lamb who is slain. It just is like, I don't know. It's just so, I feel like if any of us had that chance, it'd be like, guys, calm down. John, stop crying. I got this. But I don't know. He just goes and does it. It's so cool.
Very
Go on,
humble.
your seals part.
Seals. Like that one Super Bowl commercial. Oh, you didn't see that.
I was driving.
The Mountain Dew commercial with the seal.
Was it good?
It was pretty funny. What's the name of that actor?
Seal.
They had an actor whose name is named Seal, or like he's a singer, right? And they put his face on the CGI seal.
Oh wow,
It was really funny.
It so funny?
It was pretty good. Made me very thirsty for Baja Blast. So it
Sheesh.
worked. It did its job.
Wow.
But the first seal is kind of interesting because chapter 6 verse 1 says, now I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, I heard one of the 4 living creatures saying with a voice like thunder, come and see. And I looked, and behold, a white horse. He who sat on it had a bow, and a crown was given to him, and he went out conquering and to conquer. The first seal is the arrival of this character riding a white horse.
Is this Jesus coming back
Maybe,
already?
yeah.
Riding on a white horse with a crown on his head?
JK, it's not him.
Well, if it's not Jesus Christ, then who is it?
The Antichrist.
That's funny.
The instead of Christ, yep. And he's coming, and this goes back to what we talked about last time in the 2nd Thessalonians, how like the Holy Spirit is restraining the power of the Antichrist until we're taken out of the way. The Holy Spirit's taken out of the way in the working in the church, and now the Antichrist is able to come onto the scene and basically conquer the world. And it says that he's coming to conquer and to conquer. And then the second seal is this fiery red one came out, and it was granted to him to take away the peace from the earth, and that people should kill one another. So the second horse, this red horse, is war coming. So the Antichrist, and then war comes. And then the third one is famine. Was this gray? Is it the gray horse, right? Black horse. And he was sat on it, had a pair of scales in his hand. And he's able to cause inflation and make things very expensive. A quart
With
of
tariffs.
Wheat, a tariff. Oh no! A quart of wheat for a denarius. So yeah, he just kind of makes poverty comes after war. So that's the idea.
Did you mention these are the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse?
I did not mention that.
That's what they're commonly known as, you know.
Yep.
So in the
X-Men
even just
movie,
like end times lore,
yeah,
you know, there's these 4 horsemen of the
Yeah.
apocalypse. So that's where this idea comes from.
And the fourth one is death in Hades. So war, poverty, death in Hades all started with the Antichrist. And then what's the fifth seal? The fifth seal is these martyrs crying out. These people who have apparently put their faith and trust into Jesus after the rapture happened, and then they were killed for it, and they're crying out for God to judge the world. And then the sixth seal is this great earthquake that really shakes things up and affects everything. And then some of the leaders of the world in verse 16 and verse 15 says, and the kings of the earth and great men and rich men and commanders of mighty men, every slave and every free man, hid themselves in the caves, in the rocks, the mountains. And they said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. So at the end of this war and famine, all this awesome earthquake happens. People freak out. They hide in caves. They hide in their bunkers and their little safe houses that all these millionaires built, and they're freaking out, and they realize this is God pouring out his wrath on the world.
They know
it, which is crazy that they realize this, that they have this realization. And this is a good reason, again, why we as the church can't be here for the whole tribulation, the whole 7-year tribulation. We can't be here because we do not experience the wrath of the Lamb. God's wrath was poured out on Jesus for us 2,000 years ago. We don't get it in the tribulation.
Right, because one of the hairs that people will try to divide is the church is going to go through part of the tribulation,
Yeah.
but they're not going to get to the wrath of God. So if you're just reading, it's very clear that by the sixth seal, definitely the wrath has come.
Sure.
So some argue that the wrath only comes with the sixth seal. To me, that just seems kind of
Silly.
strange when you read about these other ones. Does it make sense that it's kind of progressively getting worse? Kind of. Like it's compounding, it's multiplying greater as it goes. But each step is, every time a seal is open in heaven, it's like God's wrath in the theme of that seal is coming down from heaven, affecting earth each time. So if that makes sense, that when the sixth seal is open and you have a seal opening, one last seal left to open the scroll completely, seal opens, wrath comes down. Like it just makes sense that each seal has wrath associated with it, not just one.
Yeah. If people try and get weird, like, oh, the rapture happens halfway through, or first the Antichrist does his thing and then the wrath comes. But if you just read Revelation chronologically, it doesn't work out like that. So, and then the seventh seal, and this is kind of interesting, the seventh seal is actually now these 7 bowls. So it's like one of those like Russian dolls. Like, you know, you get like there's like a thing inside of a thing. Like the seventh seal is actually these 7
Did you play with a lot of Russian dolls?
No, but I've
up?
seen them before. They're interesting. Like there's things inside of things. And so like these 7 bowls are the seventh seal. And then the 7th bowl is going to actually be these 7 vials. And so it's like, that's like another layer to it. Whoa. Yeah. Just like the Russian dolls. So 7 bowls, things get crazy, earthquakes. But before we talk about that, chapter 7 talks about these 144,000 sealed people, 12,000 from each of the 12 tribes of Israel, 12 times 12, 144, 12,000, 144,000. And these are Jewish people who are going to be evangelizing the earth during the tribulation. And Revelation chapter 7 tells us about that, which is kind of cool. So, yeah.
Why would God need 144,000 sealed evangelists to share the gospel during the time of the tribulation?
Because we're not there.
Interesting, huh?
Yeah.
It's like, why don't we need them now?
Because we're here.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
our
whose
job.
job it is now.
Yeah.
But if you're not around to do your job,
Yeah.
he's going to hire someone else,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yep. And this, again, the tribulation is mainly God, like you said, waking up the Jewish people. It's not about us. Jeremiah chapter 30, the tribulation is called Jacob's trouble, Israel's trouble.
Yeah,
Your
and
whole thing of Daniel chapter 9.
Because it's the 70th and final week of Daniel. It's the last 7 years to fulfill the 70 weeks of Daniel, from Daniel chapter 9, verses 24 and 25. It's for your people and your holy city. Jewish people, Jerusalem, Israelites.
Yep. And people get all confused because they look at this and they read Matthew chapter like 24 and 25, the Olivet Discourse, and say, this doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense if you're thinking of us in the context of it, but you realize Jesus is talking to a Jewish audience about the end times, and it's about the Jews. And when you put the Jews in that context and it's not about us as the church, it all makes sense and it all works very well together.
Yeah, it's almost as like in Matthew 24, he says very specific things like
the Sabbath.
Pray
that your
flight's not on winter or on the Sabbath day. And it's like, well, who's concerned with the Sabbath?
Not me. I work on Saturday all the time.
Yeah, there's like a group of people that are very concerned with the Sabbath. It's the Jewish people. So like all of that really makes sense. And well, this is important to talk about briefly. If you want to understand Revelation in the way that we're teaching it, you have to understand Israel in their proper place. If that piece is missing, none of this is going to make sense. Israelology, the study of Israel, and God's future plan for Israel is paramount, is key to this view of the end times. And if you are in a denomination or a system or an ism that doesn't understand the significance of Israel, then it makes sense why you're not going to agree with the way that we're reading this. Like, Israel is the missing piece of the puzzle that when that is in its proper place, you see it the way that we're seeing it. If you do not see that, if you don't have that piece, you're going to constantly not be able to figure out and connect the dots and understand the significance. So,
Revelations will turn to a confusing mess.
Yeah.
But yeah, the bowl judgments are on their way. Chapter 8 gets into the bowl judgments. Fire, earthquake. One of the bowl judgments when like these demons come out of the bottomless pit.
Oh, those little scorpion dudes.
Yeah,
Those
the ones
big
with like the face of man or face of a lady, but like the body of a horse.
The locusts from the bottomless pit, probably. They sound pretty bad.
Is that in chapter 8 or chapter 9?
Oh, yeah, you got a point. Chapter 9.
Which one is that? Is that number 5?
It's 5th trumpet, yeah.
Oh. Dice, I mixed up. It's
Trumpets,
seals,
then bowls.
trumpets, then bowls.
Yeah, it's gonna be a little.
Yeah, veiled bowls, same thing. Yeah, trumpets.
Right.
Yep.
And there's like the vegetation and the water.
Yep.
Yeah, and how much.
Oh
gosh.
So there's a scroll that has 7 seals on it. 6 of the seals get broken. Then there's 7 trumpets that 7 angels have. The angel toots their horn in heaven, and it associates with some wrath on the earth. So 6 seals get open, wrath. 7 trumpets get tooted, wrath. 7 bowls get poured out, wrath. And then the 7th seal is broken, and then the whole scroll is able to unravel type of a deal.
Yeah.
So in your whole doll analogy, it's just like you have these seals that are broken in heaven by Jesus that's associated with wrath on the earth. Then you have these trumpets in heaven that are getting blown by angels that when they sound the horn, it's affecting earth. And then you have these bowls of wrath that are like, the picture is like they're getting poured out on the earth with judgment. So yeah, just when you're saying trumpet, I just wanted to connect the dots. Like what we have here is like an angel's like blowing a horn.
Yeah.
And it's associating with.
And one more thing, very important. This is super important to understand Revelation. In chapter 8, it says when he opened the 7th seal, this verse actually proves that men will get to heaven a half an hour. This is the best joke a pastor will ever say. Men will get to heaven a half an hour before women, because it says in chapter 8, verse 1, when he opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. And how could there be silence there if there's ladies there?
Is that silly?
It's
Yeah. I wonder which of you talks more. Because Avery goes, I'm not going to talk for the rest of the podcast.
yeah, she would do that.
No, that is quite a joke.
I'm kidding. I'm just joking, guys.
That's really funny.
So, yeah. Like you said, the trumpets are going.
Yeah, so there's a view out there called the pre-wrath rapture, which is some people think is mid-trib, but it's a little different than mid-trib. And it's what you almost summarized, and that is in the line, meaning it's between the 6th and 7th seal, I think, that they believe the rapture takes place.
Yeah, I don't know too much about that.
So yeah.
But yeah, people would just place it all over the place. But it seems that the whole thing is wrath. There seems to be a lot of demonic activity going on while these trumpets and bowls are going on. So the Antichrist is conquering the world, and there's a bunch of weird demon stuff going on.
Right.
But
it's also like all the things that you could, at least man could put their trust in, is like falling apart before their eyes. Like at least in the caves, that was already enough, and they know they're being attacked. But you can't just be like, well, I have my whole thing of food and water or whatever. Like it's everything's falling down. Like everything.
All the water's turning to blood.
Yes, and it's like the stars are falling out of the sky. Like it's just
all of these descriptions to me is simple enough proof that this hasn't happened yet.
Sure.
Because like when in history did this
Has
take,
all
if we're
the
taking
water
it
turned to
if
blood?
we're taking judgments literally,
Right.
when did this take place? And there isn't a time.
Yeah,
So if it hasn't happened in history, then it has to be future.
sure. Yeah,
Or you're explaining away what it says.
sure.
What doesn't actually mean what it says it means. What it actually just means is, and that you just
Sure.
make something up.
And people will spend a lot of time on like social media talking about like, oh, the Euphrates River is getting very low this year because of one of the bowl judgments. Like the Euphrates River like dries up and like demons come out of it or whatever. And it's like, yeah, but like the rapture hasn't happened yet, and I don't think demons are coming out of the Euphrates River. And people are like, but people like find
Have you
these
heard
little
about
things and like
the noises coming from there. Have you ever seen that on TikTok, or Instagram, or YouTube? Yeah, there's some the sound of like demons at the Euphrates River, like this noise coming from underneath. Yeah, it's very
people just
interesting
kind of
stuff.
find interesting things to talk about. Yeah, they just kind of take things out of context. Yep. And you could talk a lot about giants and half demons and what you
That
could.
was so dramatic.
Yes.
No, you're just like a lot about, and you're just like giants. Like you almost didn't want to go there.
No,
but
I
you
didn't.
want
I
to.
know because we're kind of going long. But there's a bunch of weird stuff going on. And Jesus said that there would be weird stuff going on. He said, like, in the days of Noah, so in the same way it will be when I return. And in the days of Noah, there was weird stuff going on. And it's still going to be the world without the influence of the church in it. So there might be some wacky, crazy stuff going on. But that's the 7 trumpets. And then we get to, oh golly,
The mighty angel with the little book.
yeah,
Aw.
and like the 7, is that the 7 thunders, right? Or no, he eats the book.
Not yet. Yeah, and it's bitter and sweet.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of an odd
Little section.
chapter that's thrown in there.
Yep.
Of this angel that comes with this book. That's and then John's told to eat it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then chapter 11, we get some measurements of the city.
And the 2 witnesses.
Yep, and the 2 witnesses, which is much more exciting. Yeah, yeah. We get some architecture, and then we get these 2 cool witnesses, and they prophesy for the first half of the tribulation, the first 3.5 years, or they prophesy for how many days does it say? Because I know it says like a certain amount of days.
1,260.
Yep, that exact amount of days. Yep, these 2 guys are probably Moses and Elijah. And they're able to turn water to blood and stop it from raining, just like Moses and Elijah. And they witness and they do their thing and they pour out God's wrath and they wake people up until their time is up and the Antichrist is able to kill them. And their bodies are laid out in the streets and everyone in the world sees them. And they celebrate and they give gifts to one another just like it's Christmas. And then 3 days later, God raises them from the dead and they ascend up into heaven. And there's a great earthquake and a lot of people die. And they die in Jerusalem. This all takes place in Jerusalem. So that's the first 3.
It takes place in Jerusalem, yet the whole world is going to witness it.
Isn't that interesting? How would that happen? How could that be possible? For us, it's not hard to believe. Because we have these things called social media and live streaming.
30 years ago, you would think it would be on CNN.
Yep.
50 years ago, you'd think
That can't be real.
CBS.
Yeah.
70 years ago, you couldn't even fathom it.
Yep. 2,000 years ago, forget about it when this was written.
That's right.
But now it's we've caught up to the Bible. Technology's finally caught up. So, and then, let's see. Now we kind of get into some cool, interesting pictures in Revelation chapter 12. And there are some pictures in Revelation. The great woman clothed with the sun and this red fiery dragon having 7 heads. And this woman gives birth to this child.
Are you looking at the Bible on your computer? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you impressed?
Well, I just wasn't sure what you had pulled up there.
Yes, I have the Bible on my computer. What's the deal with this lady, Hagen?
Well, Jordan, it's Mary.
What? So good.
The Queen of Heaven.
Aw.
Just kidding.
Queen. Slave.
Well, we have a woman who, it says, verse 1, On her head, a garland of 12 stars.
Ooh.
This ties in with a imagery back in Genesis
Yep.
of Joseph. And being with child, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth. And another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great fiery red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 diadems on his head. His tail drew a third of the stars of heaven, threw them to the earth, and the dragon stood before the woman who was ready to give birth to devour the child as soon as it was born. She bore a male child who was to rule the nations with the rod of iron, and her child was caught up to God and to his throne.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty obvious the child is Jesus who gets born. So the woman, I could see at one level where people could think this is Mary if you're thinking literally. But when you tie the other pieces together, it appears that it's bigger picture talking about the nation Israel.
Yeah.
The nation Israel is this woman who gives birth, who brings forth the Messiah. And this dragon is not a fan of the Jewish people.
Yep.
And there's persecution that's going to be associated to them.
Sure. And the woman is like hidden away because the dragon tries to like kill her, right? Where does that happen at? Yeah. Verse 13, now when the dragon saw that he had been cast down to the earth, first we have to talk about, then there's like this war in heaven. So halfway through the tribulation, there's this war in heaven between God and his Archangel Michael and the devil, and Satan is kicked out of heaven. Before this, and apparently right now, Satan has access to heaven, but here at the end of all things, halfway through the tribulation, Satan's now kicked out of heaven. He loses access to heaven, and now he's really mad, and he tries to kill all the Jews or persecute this woman in verse 13.
And they overcame him, verse 11 first, by the blood of the Lamb, the word of their testimony. They did not love their lives to the death.
That's a good verse.
They overcome that dragon, that serpent, that accuser of the brethren, Satan, by the blood of the Lamb, the work of Jesus, by the word of their testimony, what Jesus did for them and what Jesus did through them. Blood of the Lamb, word of their testimony. They didn't love their lives unto death. They were willing to die for the work of Jesus.
Yep. I'm sure we could just keep going and finish the book, but I know you probably have a lot to say about the new heavens and the new earth.
I probably could, yeah.
Do you want to do a part 2, or should we keep going?
We should do a part 2.
Okay.
Let's do the beast. Let's do chapter 13.
Sure.
And then we'll pause, because then that'll get us to...
Isn't there something with chapter 12, like the woman's taken to like these mountains or like this hiding place, and like you've been there in Israel? How like there's this
in Petra.
It's
in Jordan, the country of Jordan.
Sorry. Yep.
Have you heard of it?
I have heard of the country of Jordan. Yep. Great place. Wonderful tourism.
Great name.
Yeah. And that's where she's hiding. And yeah, the tribulation is going to be a great time of persecution for the Jewish people. But then that takes us to chapter 13.
Because there's this whole verse 14, but the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle that she might fly into the wilderness. America helps her, the eagle.
Amen.
I'm kind of joking. Probably bravely joking, honestly.
Yeah, America probably
Where
falls
she
apart.
is nourished for a time, times, and half a time for 3.5 years, 42 months, 1,260 days, the last half of the tribulation.
Yeah.
From the presence of the serpent. So the serpent spewed water out of his mouth like a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away by the flood. But the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon had spewed from his mouth. The dragon was enraged with the woman, and he went to make war with the rest of her offspring, who kept the commandments of God and of the testimonies of Jesus Christ. So there's this remnant of Jewish people that flee to the wilderness. Don't believe it for sure, but for a prophecy that's in the Old Testament as well as this, many believe it's the rock city of Petra in Jordan, where she's going to find refuge, where Israel will find refuge for the rest of the time of the tribulation.
Yep.
Then we see the beast coming up from the sea
Mm-hmm.
in chapter 13.
Yep. And I thought it was interesting that you mentioned America because nowhere in prophecy is America mentioned, which means that either America by the time of Revelation doesn't exist anymore, which is kind of sad, or this is a thought that some people have, that the rapture just, and this is a very positive thought, the rapture cripples America so much that it's just no longer a world power anymore, and the Antichrist is able to easily steamroll through it. So because you would think like America, we're basically the most powerful in the whole world. You think that, you think it would be mentioned, but it would also make sense if the rapture happened. The rapture would be worse for America than it probably would be for like communist China or for like the Muslim countries, because some of our leadership, believe it or not, is Christian, and none of their leadership is, and so there would be a crippling factor there. But I just like to throw that out because I think it's fun. But chapter 13 talks about this beast coming out of the sea.
This beast comes out of the sea. You got the description in verse 1, verse 2. The beast which I saw was like a leopard, his feet like the feet of a bear, his mouth like the mouth of a lion. The dragon gave him his power, his throne, and his great authority. The dragon we know from the previous chapter is Satan, the accuser of the brethren. So Satan is giving this beast creature power and authority. And I saw on his head, as it had been mortally wounded, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world marveled and followed the beast. This is the Antichrist who gets a mortal wound, assassinated, shot in the ear. Just kidding. Who gets shot, it gets hurt in the head.
Yeah.
Mortal, hurts, dead, but yet is brought back to life, it appears.
Yeah.
And this is happening because of the power of Satan. And here, the painting gets a lot clearer as to why we would refer to this character as the Antichrist. Because now we start to see more parallelism of a counterfeit of the true resurrection.
Yeah.
This guy, strong political figure, apparently gets assassinated, yet comes back to life, which results in the world marveling and following after him. So they worship the dragon, Satan, who gave authority to the beast, and they worship the beast, saying, who's like the beast? Who's able to make war with him? This guy's unstoppable.
Yeah.
We saw him die and come back to life. The power that he has from Satan and he himself is the greatest power ever. And he was given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. He's given authority to continue for 42 months, which is half of 7, which is 3.5 years, which is 1,260 days, which is times and a half of times. It's all the way of describing the last half of the tribulation period, the last 3.5 years. Then he opened his mouth and blasphemies against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and those who dwell in heaven. He's blaspheming the name of God, the temple of God, and he's also blaspheming God's people who are in heaven, which is who?
Us.
You and me. The beast is
still
talking trash about us when we're in heaven. Take this personally. And it was granted to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And authority was given to him over every tribe, tongue, and nation. And all who dwell on the earth will worship him, whose names have not been written in the book of life of the Lamb slain before the foundation of the world. If anyone has ears to hear, let him hear. He who leads into captivity, blah, 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 blah. But then we have another character who comes onto the scene who's not just the Antichrist, who's the political figure, but now we have a religious character who comes onto the scene, this beast from the earth, who's the false prophet.
Pope Francis.
And these guys go together. Some would argue.
Some would say.
Yes.
Yeah, this false prophet. And it's interesting, the Antichrist does a mock resurrection, and now we kind of have a mock Trinity: Satan, his Antichrist, and his false prophet. Father, Son, Holy. It's all just a mockery. Yeah.
Yes. So this beast coming up from the earth, he has 2 horns like a lamb, and he spoke like a dragon, speaking like the devil. He exercises all authority of the first beast, so same type of power as the Antichrist, the false prophet, has. And he causes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast whose deadly wound was healed. So the false prophet is going to help propagate the worship of the Antichrist from this assassination attempt. And he's performing great signs so that he even makes fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. Miraculous signs are happening by the power of Satan through this false prophet. And he deceives, verse 14, and he deceives those who dwell on the earth by those signs which he was granted to do in the sight of the beast, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image to the beast who was wounded by the sword and lived.
And this image is AI because it has an ability to know if you have the mark of the beast or not.
Sheesh.
Yep.
He's granted power to give breath to the image of the beast.
Yep.
That the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast to be killed.
Yeah.
So
Maybe not AI, but something
there's-
weird going on.
There seems to be an intelligence to this
Sure.
image, right? Is
Maybe
it artificial?
artificial?
Yes. He causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive the mark on their right hand and on their foreheads, that no one may buy or sell except the one who has the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of man. His number is 666.
And in Greek, 666 translates to Pfizer. So we know that if you've gotten the vaccine, sorry. No,
Yes.
not quite. We're not sure what the mark of the beast is going to be. People used to think it was credit cards.
People thought it was credit cards because that has to do with buying and selling. And then people thought it was the chips in the credit cards. And then people thought it was vaccines.
Yeah.
And now people will think it's Elon Musk's,
Cyberlink.
internal memory chip thing. One thing that seems to be clear through this as you read Revelation chapter 13 as it deals with the mark of the beast, these people are receiving the mark of the beast, and in so receiving it, there's a conscious response that they're worshiping the Antichrist. Meaning you're not going to accidentally receive this thing.
Sure.
I don't think we need to worry about it because we're not going to be here. But for the sake of the argument, it's not like, oh man, I accidentally got my new credit card and now I've got the mark of the beast. No, it's like you receiving this in a sense as you pledging your allegiance
Yeah.
to the kingdom of the Antichrist, and you're chill with that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you just read chapter 13, unless there's a strong political figure who's been assassinated and come back to life, then you have no reason to be worried about the mark of the beast yet.
Yeah.
Very fair.
Right?
Yeah.
There you go.
That makes sense.
Yes. Makes sense. Well, that's the first part of Revelation.
But next time we'll
finish
talk
it.
about the mark of the Lamb in chapter 14. We've got the mark of the beast. We'll deal with the mark of the Lamb in Revelation 14 to the end of the chapter.
Your guys' homework is to read ahead, but then also read some of Daniel, because as going through this, there's a lot of things that Daniel connects with, especially the second half of Daniel. So like Daniel 6 onward, there's a lot of things that talk about the Antichrist and what he's going to be doing, and the whole thing in Daniel chapter 9 as well. So that's your homework.
Perfect. This week, we got our session 1 of Revelation. Next week, session 2. And the following week, actually, no. I was going to say we'll have the debrief of your mission trip to North Carolina, but you'll actually
I'll
still
be
be
on
there.
it. Yes.
Yes. So we won't get that till the first Friday of March.
But we'll figure it out.
Yes. Wow.
Yep. Cool. Okay. Well, thanks for watching, guys. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.